Hey guys, time for another update on my Bearhawk build. I'm now at the 11-month stage. Progress is still pretty good overall. It is a little bit harder to see the results of a day's work each time, and that's mainly because the jobs I'm doing now are very small jobs, all of which have to be done. There's hundreds of them, and the ones that I didn't necessarily have on the work list, they're just ones that need to be completed before moving on to the next stage. Come and take a look. So you can see here I've made good progress with the cowling. I've got the cowl doors in place now. The cam locks are all installed, they're all functioning. I haven't put the retaining clips on the back of the cam locks, and that's because I'm going to paint the doors first, and then I'll fit the retaining clips permanently. So I've done a lot of work on the air intake. Now what I did there is I bought a Van's air intake for an RV6. It's about the right size. The only issue with it, of course, is that the flange shape here to fit the lower cowl is different. It was quite different. I ended up cutting the old flange off. I shortened it quite significantly, and then I made a new flange. And that was my first attempt at using fiberglass. Very, very pleased with the results. I did quite a lot of research, and as luck would have it, the place where I bought my supplies was owned by an aircraft engineer. So he took a great interest in what I was doing and gave me some really good advice. He also told me how to build a little heat box, which is there. It's being used as a work table at the moment. I simply bought some polystyrene insulation in a sheet. I cut it down to size and used 4-inch nails, which you just press them with your hand. And because of the cold temperatures, it's winter down here in New Zealand, I was able to then, after I'd done the fiberglassing, put the article in the under the box with a small heater there, and bring it up to temperature to cure. So I spent quite a lot of time doing the spark plugs and the spark plug leads, and I've also permanently installed the P-mags, which you can just see in there, and spent quite a long time doing that. I've just torqued the retaining bolts up yesterday, and these are automotive spark plugs here that run with the P-mags. I went down to the local hot rod shop and bought these spark plug lead separators, which work very, very well, and I still just have to find a mount just to clamp those into place. So I went ahead and installed the ADS-B aerial and the transponder aerial, which is just on the other side. And in the back there, you can see the Rami VHF aerial. Now, when I installed the Rami VHF aerial, I also had to install a doubler. So this is now looking on the inside, just in front of the fuel selector. And I put a fairly large doubler plate in there to stiffen up the stainless steel tunnel. Once I'd finished installing the VHF aerial, I wanted to see if it was going to work all right. So I pushed the plane outside onto the driveway and called up the local control tower, which is 10 nautical miles away, about 20k. And initially it didn't work. They reported getting carrier wave only, which had me stumped. Turned out to be a very simple fix, actually. What I had done inadvertently, when I was working on the control sticks, I'd swapped them over. And so when I was transmitting, I was using the offside push-to-talk switch to transmit, and of course it was going carrier wave only. Once I swapped them back the correct way, did another transmission loud and clear. It's also receiving very loud and clear, and I put my headset in all 4 jack points just to test them out, and they're all working very, very well. Very happy with that. Yeah, so you can see here my flying wires arrived. I had them made up in Hamilton, New Zealand by a chap by the name of Russ Ward, who appears to have done a very, very good job, and the price was right too. So I've installed them. It's a temporary install only. They need to be kept under tension, otherwise they can be quite fragile. I've got the lower one in place down here, and they all fit very, very well. So I've got all 4 of them installed there at the moment. What I am going to do shortly is take them back off and put them back in the storage tube just to protect them until the aircraft gets into its hangar for final assembly. Another thing I did here was I purchased these rudder cable fairings from Aircraft Spruce, and I've just glued them on with silicone using that as an adhesive. So I spent quite a lot of time finishing off all of these access port covers. They all fit properly now. I've had them all screwed into place and taken them off for storage. Some of them still need to be painted actually, but pretty happy with how they went. Another job I got done was I made up these trim strips. So this is on the rear tailplane, and these strips go right around both sides of the tailplane. Took a couple of days to make them up actually. I used templates out of cardboard, and I used paper clips to actually get the contour. I finished off installing my ground power plug, which last time I think was just sitting there waiting for the correct bolts to turn up. So that's all operational now. It's connected up to the battery, and if I ever need to do a jump start using a starter pack, I can plug it in to the jump pack at my feet and do it from inside the aircraft. Yesterday I spent quite some time torquing up the engine bolts, both on the front side of the engine mount where the engine attaches, and on the rear side where it attaches to the firewall. So that was all new work for me, so I had to do a bit of research. I asked for a little bit of help on the Bearhawk forum actually, and promptly got the help as well. So what I did is I looked up all the torque values in the AC4313, and that was quite a big help. Also in the Lycoming parts manual there was some help there as well. And I had to go and buy myself a second torque wrench because the original one that I had was just too small. It went up to about 20 Newton meters. So I purchased another one that goes up to 100 Newton meters, and I had to do all the conversions. So I've double checked and triple checked all of that, and pretty happy with how it came out so far. So what I'm now doing is as I go through and permanently tighten all these bolts, I'm writing them down in a spreadsheet, and that's so that my mentor, when he comes to sign everything off at the end, he's got he can see that I've kept a track record of it all. I had already made a skylight out of polycarbonate last month and installed it with machine screws. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of using a thread sealant on those machine screws, and it doesn't play well with the polycarbonate, and it cracked around the threads. So I took that off, used that as a template, and made this one up. What I've done is I've drilled larger holes around for the screws, and I've used like a clear plastic tubing, sliced it up to make little washers, and inserted it in each of the holes. So that gives a bit of room to move, bit of a buffer, and a little bit of cushioning around there. So I'm not using any Loctite on these ones, and it's worked out very well at this stage. Now I did have retaining strips of aluminium in place, and that would hold this polycarbonate down against the rib here. I've taken them off and I've taken them down to a local machine shop, and they're actually making some up in their shop. And the reason for that, they're going to make up four, two left ones and two right ones, and I'm going to rivet opposite sides together. What that's going to do is it will have a flange that effectively covers where this piece of tape is here on one side to hold the polycarbonate down, but on the other side it'll have another flange that protrudes out towards the wing, and the intent there is to give somewhere for the wing trim strips to rest up against. So I'll show that in a later video once I get them back. So I've dropped the air intake off the bottom of the engine, and the filter is also removed, and this is now looking up under the engine at the fuel servo. This is the throttle connection, and this here is a rod end bearing that I've installed to connect the throttle to the fuel servo. On the other side is the mixture. That's all connected up there, and this is all using part of the van's firewall forward kit set that I purchased. You can see here the red fireproof hose around the fuel hose. Now that hose runs from the fuel pump to the fuel servo, and there's another smaller line here that runs up on top of the engine, and that goes to the fuel flow divider. I had all of these fittings made up at the local hydraulic shop, and they fit perfectly. So I spent some time with the scat tubing, making it all up, cutting it to size. It's all been fitted. This one here draws air from the top of the engine down to the engine oil cooler. These ones here take air from behind the number 5 cylinder, and they run it down to the exhaust heat muffs, and these ones from the heat muffs into the cabin hot air vents. One thing I did at the suggestion and the instructions from the van's firewall forward kit was I ran a bead of high temperature silicon along each one, and that's to stop the string unraveling that holds it all together. So they're all ready to go back on the engine once I've torqued all the bolts. Obviously space is becoming a premium and behind the 540 at the moment, so these will probably go on last. So this is looking at the right front door. That's the door latch there. I made up these small handles here just so that you can pull the door closed easily. I just made them out of some angle profile aluminium that I purchased from the local aluminium supplier, fashioned them and then screwed them into place. I went ahead and installed the flap pulleys this evening, one on each side of the fuselage, and that's to run the flap cable up to the actual lever on the flap torsion tube itself. I haven't yet made the cut because the cable needs to run through the fuselage fabric round about here. So it's one of those things, I'll probably do it with a soldering iron, Probably going to have to measure it several times, make sure I get it correct. So there's another month's work on the Bearhawk aircraft at the 11-month stage. In the coming month, I'm planning to get the engine cowlings painted up and all the trim strips and access port covers painted as well. At that stage, it should be getting very, very close to having finished the fuselage. And at this stage, I'm already making plans to have it trucked down to the local airfield once my hangar's complete. And that should be probably in around about 6 weeks' time, I would think. At that point, I'll bring the wings up here and start work on the wings. Just before we do that, I will probably do a trial fitting of the wings out the front of the garage here. And the main reason for that is to make sure that I get the correct positioning, because I'd like to fit the windshield and get that in the correct position before I truck the fuselage down to the hangar. Stay tuned, I'll give you another update in 4 weeks' time, and thanks for watching.